Do you know why so many women fake pleasure? It's not because of a lack of desire, but because most men never really understood how the female body works. They think it's all about the clitoris or penetration, when in reality, the deepest pleasure comes from a zone that almost no one dares to explore. And no, it's not a myth or a fantasy. I'm talking about the anal and perineal area, a region that holds more than 8,000 nerve endings, directly connected to the clitoris, pelvic muscles, and the brain's pleasure center. When stimulated properly, gently and with technique, the female body reacts completely differently. Contractions go deeper, sensitivity multiplies, and arousal spreads through the abdomen and legs. This isn't just theory. It's medically proven. Studies published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine and Clinical Anatomy have shown that proper anal stimulation can double the release of dopamine and oxytocin in the female brain. In other words, it generates a far more intense emotional and physical response than direct clitoral stimulation. What's fascinating is that older women are the ones who enjoy this kind of touch the most, because their body and mind have already learned to relax, to feel without fear or guilt. They're not worried about how they look or whether they make noise. They're focused purely on sensation. That's why their pleasure is more authentic, deeper, and often explosive. Here's what most men miss. The female body needs preparation, not speed. If you rush, she closes up. If you go slow and pay attention, her body responds on its own. The skin of the perineum and anus is extremely sensitive, and the right touch can awaken sensations that no other area can reproduce. The secret lies in progression, warmth, breathing, and trust. When the mind relaxes, the body follows. The biggest mistake is thinking it's just about doing it. Well, it's about how you do it. Use the pads of your fingers, not the tips. Avoid direct friction at first. Instead, draw slow, light circles without pressure. What triggers pleasure isn't immediate contact. It's the anticipation, that moment when she doesn't know if you'll do it or not, but her body has already started to respond. And when you do it right, there's no need for her to fake anything. Her breath stops, her muscles tighten, and her body literally trembles uncontrollably. Older women respond even better to this kind of stimulation because they have a more conscious connection with their bodies. Their pelvic muscles are stronger, their internal sensitivity higher, and their mind no longer needs permission to enjoy. When a man understands this, his intimate life changes completely. Not just because she feels more pleasure, but because the bond becomes deeper and more meaningful. Think of it this way. A relaxed body, a trusting mind, and guided stimulation can turn a simple caress into an explosion. That's the difference between doing it and knowing how to do it. So let me ask you directly. Have you ever noticed how her breathing changes when you just brush against her, without touching her completely? Do you know how to hold that tension without breaking it? Leave a comment if you've tried it or would dare to, because this technique, though few admit it, is one of the most powerful ways to give a woman real pleasure. And if you still don't know exactly how to do it or how to avoid the mistakes that can ruin everything, stay tuned. In the next part, I'll teach you the precise clinical and sensory steps to do it right and take her to a level of pleasure she's probably never felt before. Now that you know the area most men ignore, let's get to what really matters. How to do it right. Because the difference between discomfort and pure pleasure lies in the smallest details. It's not enough to know where to touch. You must understand how the female body works and what physiological processes are triggered in that moment. The first step is trust. No woman opens up completely if she feels shame or tension. The female brain has an automatic defense system. If it senses discomfort, it shuts down the sexual response. That's why you must set the scene. And I don't just mean soft lights or music, but how you make her feel. She needs to know you're there to enjoy together, not to try something weird. When she feels respected, her body responds naturally. The second step is physical preparation. The anal area doesn't have natural lubrication, so any contact without enough moisture feels invasive. Always use a water-based lubricant or a natural edible oil like coconut or almond oil. Generously. The goal is not for her to feel your touch, but for the sensation to glide as if it were her own skin. Next comes the sensory adaptation phase. Don't start directly with your finger or tongue. First, caress the lower back, the buttocks, and the perineum. This area is extremely sensitive and filled with nerve endings connected to the parasympathetic nervous system, the same system that controls pleasure and relaxation. What you're doing is signaling to her body that something pleasurable is about to happen. From there, approach slowly without rush and play with temperature. The contrast between the warmth of your breath and the moist contact of the lubricant creates an immediate electric response. If you observe carefully, her breathing will shorten, and her hips will start moving on their own. That's the moment when you can begin to stimulate with circular, soft, rhythmic movements, without penetration. Remember, the goal isn't to enter, it's to activate. That activation triggers an involuntary contraction of the sphincter and a reflex that sends nerve impulses simultaneously to the clitoris and the G-spot. That's why, when done correctly, she feels a wave rising from her pelvis to her abdomen. Clinical studies have shown that this kind of stimulation creates synchronization between vaginal and anal contractions, producing what's called a dual orgasmic reflex. In other words, two pleasure sources activate at once. That's why many women describe it as more intense, deeper, and more emotional. One key tip: don't break the rhythm. When you feel her body moving instinctively, don't change pressure or speed. The biggest mistake men make is thinking faster is better. It's not. Consistency is what keeps the pleasure building until it peaks. If you change rhythm at the wrong time, her body resets and loses all the built-up tension. And here's something few know. When a mature woman reaches climax through this type of stimulation, her brain releases more serotonin than with any other orgasm. That's why many describe it as longer-lasting, more fulfilling, and more mental. It's not just a physical release, but a state of pleasurable trance that can last several minutes. Also, after orgasm, the anal and pelvic area remain hypersensitive. If you hold her or simply maintain contact without moving, her body releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone. That little detail turns pleasure into connection, and that's what separates a casual lover from an unforgettable one. Many men ask me, what if she's never tried it before? The answer is simple. It's not about forcing, but about suggesting. Tell her you want to make her feel new things, that it's not about pain or taboo, but about knowing her body. Female curiosity is enormous, and if she feels safe, she'll try it. And when she experiences it properly, she'll remember it for a long time. If you made it this far, tell me in the comments. Have you ever explored this area with your partner? What happened? Or would you dare to now that you know how it really works? I'm reading you because this topic, though few talk about it, is changing how the world understands female pleasure. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. What's coming in the next videos will completely transform the way you see female sexuality. Remember, knowing her body is the first step for her to desire you more every day.